The studio lights were blinding, the cameras rolled, and the audience held its breath. Angela Rayner, Labour's fiery deputy leader, sat across from one of Britain's most feared political interrogators, Andrew Neil. Known for his razor-sharp questions and unflinching style, Neil leaned forward, eyes locked on Rayner. Within seconds, the atmosphere turned electric. This wasn't going to be an easy chat. This was going to be a political storm live on air. Neil opened with the question everyone had been whispering about, Angela, how can the Labour Party claim to represent working people when its policies seem designed for the London elite? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Rayner's face. She adjusted her posture, forcing a smile, but her usual confidence faltered. The Labour deputy, often praised for her down-to-earth style, suddenly looked cornered. Viewers could sense it, the tension was building, and Neil wasn't backing down. As Rayner tried to defend Labour's new policy proposals, Neil interrupted sharply. You've said you're the voice of ordinary workers. Yet, under your leadership, Labour's top donors include hedge fund managers and corporate lobbyists. How do you explain that? The words landed like a punch. Rayner's rehearsed lines began to crumble. She hesitated, looked off camera, then offered a vague response about broadening Labour's base. But Neil wasn't satisfied. He pressed harder, exposing contradictions between Rayner's public image and the party's private dealings. The audience could feel the shift. What started as a confident political performance was turning into a slow-motion unraveling. Every time Rayner tried to steer the conversation toward safer ground, talking about cost of living, housing, or NHS reform, Neil would drag her back to one burning question: if Labour is the party of the people, why does it sound more like the party of power? Her answers grew shorter, her tone sharper. It was no longer a debate, it was a political autopsy in real time. Behind the scenes, Labour advisors were reportedly panicking. Phones buzzed, aides whispered, and party strategists knew this moment could spiral. Rayner had been seen as the heart of Labour's working-class appeal, a bridge between the party's traditional roots and its modern ambitions. But under Neil's relentless questioning, that image began to fracture. He exposed inconsistencies in Labour's messaging on taxation, green energy, and small business support, areas Rayner was supposed to command. Then came the twist. Neil pulled out a document, a leaked memo, he claimed, from within Labour headquarters. It suggested that the party's leadership was preparing to drop several core pledges that Rayner herself had championed during the 2020 leadership race. The camera zoomed in on her face as she scanned the paper. That's not true, she stammered, I haven't seen that document. Neil raised an eyebrow. But your signature is right here. The studio fell silent. Rayner's eyes darted downward, her hands trembling slightly. Social media exploded. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were trending across Twitter and TikTok. Some defended Rayner, calling Neil's tactics bullying. Others praised him for, finally holding Labour to account. Political commentators described it as one of the most uncomfortable interviews of the year. For Rayner, a figure who built her reputation on authenticity and straight talk, the optics were devastating. The woman who once said she could take on anyone looked, for the first time, out of her depth. But what made the exchange truly explosive wasn't just the tension, it was what came after. Following the broadcast, reports emerged suggesting the leaked memo was real. Insiders hinted that Rayner had privately clashed with Keir Starmer over several key policies, including tax reform and workers' rights. If true, it meant Labour's leadership was far more divided than it appeared. Suddenly, this wasn't just about one bad interview, it was about a power struggle inside the party itself. Days later, Rayner attempted damage control, insisting that she stood by the working people, and that Labour was united in purpose. Yet, whispers persisted. Analysts began asking whether Andrew Neil had just exposed the first cracks in Labour's armour ahead of the next general election. Was Rayner's on-air panic a glimpse into deeper turmoil within the party? Or was it the calculated move of a journalist who knows exactly when to strike for maximum impact? As the dust settled, one question remained hanging in the air, a question that could define Labour's future: if Angela Rayner, the party's boldest voice, could be shaken so easily on live TV. What happens when Labour itself faces the full force of public scrutiny? The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the fallout had only just begun.